The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Jung was one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century. As the creator of analytical psychology, his theories revolutionized the way we understand the human mind, particularly through the introduction of concepts like archetypes and the collective unconscious. He believed that the human psyche is shaped not only by personal experiences, but also by a layer shared by all of humanity, the collective unconscious, where universal images and symbols manifest in myths, dreams, and cultural traditions. For Jung, the divine was an essential part of the psyche, not something external. In exploring ancient mythologies and religions, Jung saw true religion as a journey of self-discovery. With an innovative approach, Jung expanded the boundaries of psychological science. He proposed that the path to psychic wholeness and emotional balance involved not only the integration of the conscious and unconscious, but also the acknowledgement of a spiritual dimension within each individual. His work continues to influence psychologists, therapists, and scholars across various fields, and it has had a profound impact on modern culture. Carl Gustav Jung was born in 1875 in a small Swiss town, the son of a pastor in the Swiss Reformed Church. His upbringing was deeply marked by religious themes, as his father, an evangelical pastor, and other family members were closely tied to Christianity. From an early age, Jung was exposed to theological debates and religious practice, which sparked both interest and questions in him. Although his father was devout, Jung observed that his father's faith often seemed mechanical and disconnected from a deeper spiritual experience. This early religious influence led Jung to develop a critical view of institutionalized religion. He began questioning rigid dogmas and rituals, believing that true spirituality was an inner search, not something found in imposed rules. This tension between his family's religious practice and his personal quest for deeper meaning shaped his future theories about spirituality and the unconscious. Throughout his life, Jung continued to explore mythologies, ancient religions, and spiritual systems from various cultures, seeking to understand the role of symbols and archetypes in human spiritual development. For him, the divine was not external, but an essential part of the human psyche. His religious education, though initially conflicting, laid the foundation for his view that true religion was a journey of self-discovery and connection with the universal symbols present in the collective unconscious. One of the most transformative experiences of Jung's life occurred when he was about 12 years old. While passing by the Basel Cathedral, he had an unexpected and disturbing vision. He imagined God dropping a huge excrement on the cathedral. For the young Jung, this vision was shocking, especially given his strict religious upbringing and his respect for religion. However, upon reflection, Jung did not interpret this experience as blasphemy, but as a sign that the divine could not be confined to conventional religious structures. This vision revealed to him that the sacred was far more vast than any institution or dogma could comprehend. Jung came to believe that God, or the divine, could not be limited by human interpretations of religion, and that its true nature transcends what is taught in churches. This mystical experience was a turning point in Jung's life, prompting him to further question institutionalized religion and explore spirituality in a more symbolic and personal way. He began to realize that the sacred and the spiritual were deeply connected to the human unconscious, and could be accessed through symbols, dreams, and archetypes. These insights would later influence many of his future theories, such as the collective unconscious and the role of archetypes in psychological and spiritual development. Before becoming the famous founder of analytical psychology, Carl Gustav Jung began his academic journey by studying medicine at the University of Basel in Switzerland. Fascinated by the human mind, Jung decided to specialize in psychiatry, a field that was still in its early stages at the time. After completing his studies, he started working at the renowned Hospital in Zurich, an important psychiatric center of the time, where he dealt directly with patients suffering from severe mental disorders, such as schizophrenia and psychosis. It was in this clinical setting that Jung began to develop his early theories about the unconscious. He observed that many of his patients' symptoms could not be explained solely by physical or behavioral factors. During his work with psychotic patients, Jung noticed recurring symbolic patterns in their hallucinations and delusions. This led him to explore the depths of the mind as a source of more complex and symbolic meanings. In addition to his clinical practice, Jung conducted groundbreaking experimental studies, such as the word association technique, which helped reveal repressed content in the unconscious. This technique allowed patients to respond automatically to word stimuli, uncovering hidden emotions and memories. Through this, Jung began to see the unconscious as a significant force in shaping the human psyche, which would later evolve into his broader theories on the collective unconscious and archetypes. In the early stages of his career, Carl Gustav Jung was deeply influenced by Sigmund Freud and his theories about the unconscious. Their relationship began in 1906 when Jung sent Freud a copy of his study on word association, an innovative technique Freud admired. Their correspondence intensified, and in March 1907, Jung traveled to Vienna to meet Freud in person. This meeting was remarkable. The two talked for 13 hours straight, discussing their theories on the mind and the unconscious. The friendship and collaboration that followed seemed promising. Freud saw Jung as his natural successor in the field of psychoanalysis, especially since Jung was Swiss and Protestant, which could help expand the acceptance of psychoanalysis beyond the Jewish academic circles of Vienna. In 1910, Freud appointed Jung as president of the International Psychoanalytical Association, a prestigious position. However, as time passed, theoretical differences began to emerge between Carl Gustav Jung and Sigmund Freud. The primary disagreement lay in Freud's view of sexuality as central to psychic development. Freud believed that desires and traumas related to sexuality, especially in childhood, were the main drivers of neuroses. Jung, on the other hand, adopted a broader view of the human mind, including spiritual and symbolic aspects, which he saw as essential to psychic development. In 1912, Jung published Symbols of Transformation, where he expanded his ideas and introduced the concept of the collective unconscious, suggesting that all humans share universal images and symbols, archetypes, that shape human experience. For Freud, these ideas were a threat to psychoanalysis because they shifted the focus away from sexuality as the primary psychic driver and introduced more spiritual and metaphysical elements, which Freud considered speculative. Additionally, Jung's growing independence was another source of tension for Freud. Freud felt that Jung was straying too far from the basic principles of psychoanalysis, and this divergence led to increasing friction between them. The final break came in 1913 when their philosophical and theoretical differences became irreconcilable. Jung distanced himself from Freudian psychoanalysis and founded his own approach, analytical psychology, focusing on individual development and the process of individuation. This split was painful for both. Freud lost the intellectual air he had envisioned, while Jung went through a deep personal crisis. However, the separation also marked the beginning of a new phase in Jung's life, during which he developed his own theories and pursued a more independent path, exploring themes like mythology, religion, and the connection between the psyche and the spiritual. After the definitive break with Sigmund Freud in 1913, Carl Gustav Jung experienced a period of intense personal and emotional crisis. At the age of 39, Jung faced one of the most difficult moments of his life. The separation from Freud, who had been a mentor and close friend, deeply affected him, compounded by the fact that he was beginning to question his own professional path. This period of uncertainty led him to voluntary isolation, where he delved deeply into his inner world, confronting disturbing visions and fantasies that he described as emerging from the depths of his unconscious. Jung documented these experiences in a work later known as the Red Book. In this intimate journal, he recorded his visions, inner dialogues, and interactions with archetypal figures that emerged from his unconscious. This period of seclusion was not merely a mental breakdown, but also a time of healing and transformation. Jung believed that he was undergoing the process of individuation, the journey through which a person integrates all parts of their psyche, conscious and unconscious, to become a whole being. During this time, Jung also immersed himself in the study of mythology, religion, and alchemy, exploring how these ancient traditions could shed light on psychological development. It was during this period that he refined many of his ideas about the collective unconscious and archetypes, realizing that many of the symbols and images that appeared in his visions were universal and found across different cultures throughout history. Though this period of isolation was challenging, it allowed Jung to emerge with a much clearer understanding of the human psyche and the role of the unconscious in psychological healing. After years of retreat, he resumed his practice as a therapist, now with a more spiritual and symbolic approach that would profoundly influence psychology and his theories about the human mind. Individuation is one of Carl Gustav Jung's most important contributions to psychology. He described individuation as the process by which a person becomes who they truly are, integrating all aspects of their psyche, both conscious and unconscious. For Jung, individuation is essential for healthy psychological development and the full realization of the self. This process involves a series of stages, beginning with the individual confronting their shadow. According to Jung, the shadow consists of all the repressed and ignored aspects of the personality, traits, desires, and impulses that we deem unacceptable or undesirable. Confronting and integrating the shadow is a painful but necessary step, as these rejected aspects subtly and unconsciously influence our lives. Another fundamental concept in individuation is the self. For Jung, the self is the archetype of wholeness, representing the balance between the conscious and unconscious. The individuation process culminates in the integration of the self, meaning that the individual is no longer ruled solely by the ego, but can recognize and accept the broader forces at work within the psyche. The self symbolizes full realization and inner harmony. Jung likened individuation to the hero's journey in myths and legends. Just as the hero must face challenges, monsters, and obstacles to transform, individuals also need to confront the unknown aspects of themselves to achieve psychic wholeness. Though difficult, this process results in a more authentic and balanced life. Individuation also has a spiritual dimension, as it involves reconnecting with the divine within. Jung believed this process not only healed psychological disturbances, but also brought meaning and purpose to life. For him, individuation was a lifelong journey, and only those who faced their fears and embraced their inner contradictions could achieve true psychic integration. Carl Gustav Jung left a profound legacy in psychology, influencing not only clinical practice, but also how we understand the human psyche and its relationship to symbols and archetypes. One of his greatest contributions was the concept of the collective unconscious, which differs from Freud's personal unconscious. For Jung, the collective unconscious is a layer of the human mind shared by all of humanity, containing universal images and symbolic patterns known as archetypes. Archetypes are images and symbols that appear in myths, dreams, and cultural traditions across different eras and societies. They represent common figures and situations, such as the hero, the great mother, the shadow, and the wise old man. These archetypes shape our perception of the world and guide our behavior, often unconsciously. Another key concept in Jung's work is synchronicity, the idea that events can be connected not just by cause and effect, but by symbolic meaning. He defines synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence between internal events like thoughts or feelings and external events, without a direct causal explanation. For Jung, such events reveal a deeper order that connects the unconscious with external reality. Beyond his theories on the unconscious, Jung also made significant contributions to psychological typology. He developed a system distinguishing between introverted and extroverted personalities, as well as four main functions: thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. This typology was widely adopted and later formed the basis for the Myers-Briggs personality test, which is still used today to understand different personality types. In therapy, Jung innovated by using dreams, myths, and symbols as tools to access the unconscious. He believed that psychological healing involved helping the patient integrate the repressed parts of their psyche, allowing them to follow the path of individuation. His therapeutic methods and symbolic approach are still applied by contemporary psychotherapists, particularly those who follow Jungian psychology. Jung also ventured into alchemy, which he saw as a metaphor for psychological transformation. He believed that the work of alchemists who sought to turn metals into gold symbolically reflected the individuation process, where an individual transforms the raw elements of their psyche into an integrated whole. Carl Gustav Jung developed a unique and profound view of religion and spirituality, distinct from contemporaries like Freud. While Freud saw religion as an illusion or a collective neurosis, Jung believed that spirituality was an essential part of the human psyche. For him, religion wasn't just a set of dogmas, but a deep internal experience that connected the individual to the collective unconscious and its archetypes. Jung believed that the spiritual quest should not be confined to religious institutions or imposed beliefs, but should focus on the connection with the inner divine, represented by the self. The self, according to Jung, is the archetype of wholeness, the deepest part of the human psyche that seeks to integrate all aspects of the personality, both conscious and unconscious. For him, true spirituality lay in the path to individuation, which involved not only personal development, but also a reconnection with the divine within each person. A scholar of religions from various cultures, Jung analyzed spiritual practices and mythologies from Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and other traditions. He identified similar symbols across different cultures, such as the Christian cross, the Buddhist mandala, and alchemical gold, all representing the spiritual quest for wholeness in different ways. However, Jung was critical of religious dogmatism. He believed that many organized religions had strayed from the true spiritual experience, becoming rigid and often oppressive. For him, religion should be a living experience related to the symbols of the unconscious and the inner journey of self-knowledge. This expanded view led him to explore mystical and esoteric areas, such as alchemy and Gnosticism, which he considered ancient ways of understanding the processes of psychological and spiritual transformation. For Carl Gustav Jung, psychological healing and personal development were deeply linked to the connection with the inner divine. He believed that true healing of the mind and soul was not achieved solely through traditional therapeutic techniques, but also through a deeper process of self-discovery and reconnection with the unconscious. Jung saw the divine not as an external entity, but as a symbolic and archetypal force within each individual, which he called the self. The key to psychological healing, according to Jung, involved the process of individuation, in which the individual integrates both the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche. For him, this was not just a psychological process, but also a spiritual one, where the person approached their divine nature and the totality of their being. This process is essentially a journey of reconciliation with the repressed and unknown parts of oneself, symbolized by archetypes like the shadow, which, if ignored, could create internal conflicts. Jung also believed that dreams were a gateway to the unconscious, and through them, the self could manifest and guide the individual in the healing process. He viewed dreams as symbolic messages from the unconscious that offered clues about internal conflicts and paths to psychic integration. By working with dreams and active imagination, Jung helped his patients reconnect with these symbolic forces and progress in the healing process. In Jung's view, spirituality and self-knowledge were deeply intertwined. He believed that true psychological healing could not be separated from the search for a greater meaning in life, and that by integrating the self, the individual also connected with the divine. This integrative approach, which linked psychology to spirituality, was one of Jung's greatest contributions to modern psychology, influencing fields such as Jungian psychology, art therapy, and transpersonal psychotherapy. Carl Gustav Jung developed a deep interest in alchemy, an ancient philosophical practice and proto-science that sought to transform base metals into gold. However, Jung saw a much deeper meaning in alchemy. He believed that alchemy, rather than being just a literal search for gold, represented a symbolic metaphor for the process of psychological transformation. For Jung, the alchemical work of purifying and refining physical substances was, in fact, a reflection of the individuation process, in which an individual transforms their unconscious contents into consciousness. Jung spent many years studying ancient alchemical texts, observing that they were filled with symbols that also appeared in the dreams and visions of his patients. He saw parallels between the phases of alchemy and the stages of psychological development. For example, the nigredo, the dark or symbolic death phase, represented the confrontation with the shadow, while the albedo, the purification phase, symbolized the work of integrating these unconscious contents into the conscious. The final phase, called rubedo, rebirth or realization, represented the culmination of the process, where the individual achieves wholeness and internal harmony. Jung's interest in alchemy perfectly aligned with his belief that the human psyche was governed by archetypal symbols and images. He believed that alchemy, like myths and religions, provided a path to understanding the deep processes of the human mind. These processes, though invisible, were revealed through symbols, both in alchemical practice and in the dreams and fantasies of his patients. Moreover, Jung saw alchemy as a link between psychology and spirituality. For him, the ultimate goal of alchemy, the transmutation of lead into gold, represented the transformation of the human psyche toward wholeness, a process that was both spiritual and psychological. He believed that alchemy offered a universal symbolic language that could be applied to understanding the inner transformations that all human beings undergo. By integrating alchemy into his analytical psychology, Jung brought a new dimension to understanding the human mind, connecting science and spirituality in an innovative way. His approach continues to influence scholars in various fields who see in alchemy a powerful metaphor for the journey of self-discovery and transformation. Carl Gustav Jung's contributions have left a lasting impact on psychology and fields beyond clinical work, such as art, literature, and spirituality. His ideas on the collective unconscious, archetypes, and the process of individuation have helped expand our understanding of the human psyche and opened new doors for the study of behavior and personal development. In psychotherapy, Jung introduced a more symbolic and integrative approach, where dreams, myths, and symbols were used to access the unconscious and help patients understand and integrate hidden aspects of themselves. His view that healing involved individuation, the integration of all parts of the psyche, remains a fundamental principle in Jungian psychology, a school of psychotherapy that follows his teachings. Additionally, Jung is widely recognized for his contributions to psychological typology. His distinction between introverted and extroverted personalities, as well as the four psychological functions, thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition, formed the basis for the Myers-Briggs personality test, which is still widely used today in educational, business, and therapeutic contexts to help people understand their personality types. Jung's ideas have also influenced art therapy and other therapeutic practices based on creativity. His belief that the psyche expresses itself through symbols inspired therapeutic approaches that encourage patients to use art, sculpture, and other forms of creative expression to access unconscious content and promote healing. Beyond psychotherapy, Jung has had a significant impact on popular culture. His concepts of archetypes are used to shape characters in movies, novels, and other works of fiction, providing psychological depth and universality to narratives. Films and books often incorporate archetypal figures such as the hero, the shadow, and the great mother to resonate with deep human experiences, and the universal myths Jung so extensively studied. Jung also left a mark on modern spirituality. He was one of the first psychologists to integrate spiritual aspects into the study of the mind, and his ideas continue to influence those seeking a more holistic approach to personal growth. Jung believed that psychological healing and the spiritual quest were deeply connected, and that the path to psychic wholeness involved integrating the inner divine. This legacy continues to resonate in self-development movements and contemporary spiritual practices. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next video.